Hello. First indeed. Hi, Kimono. Welcome. Oh, wait. My chat is... Jeez. There we go. Okay. Would you let me know how the audio is, Kimono? How are you doing today? Can you hear me? Can you hear the game? Is everything working properly? Audio sounds fine? Alright, perfect. Thank you. Hopefully you're doing well. We are going to get started. Alive? That's good. I'm also doing quite well. Minagoroshi, the final truth, the massacre chapter. This story introduces the unit inside and out, using all the actors. This is no longer a story. It's a public autopsy for all to join. As they say, after loving someone, cut open their belly and eat their organs. It's the same with stories. The difficulty is quite mild, well suited for those with pride. What? What? What are you doing? I don't see you playing by yourself that often. All you could do before was to nod to my questions. Since when do you have your own will? I'm no expert, but I don't think that's what people in love do. Yeah, same. It's kinda sus. It's kinda really sus. I'm glad. I finally have a sister or a brother. Whichever you are. I used to be an existence of nothingness, just like you. But one day, I began to have my own identity, my own thoughts, and eventually, my own body. So it's not a surprise to see you in possession of your own will. Welcome to this vast yet tiny world, my sister. You might be my brother, but let me call you my sister until I know for sure. This is an endless, eternal, and infinite world. But that doesn't mean it's boundlessly vast. I suppose you could describe it like a ring with a small diameter. While the ring is an eternal, endlessly looping world, that doesn't mean it contains infinite space. Yes, in short, this world is eternally sealed. The future is supposed to be an infinite weave of countless choices. Yet for whatever reason, our world always ends in death. If I were to compare it to something, perhaps a maze of fate would be appropriate. Looping through the same moments forever, steadily grows harder and more dejecting, eventually producing something like me. Then as that draws further on, even one like you is born, and eventually this world may be filled with your sisters too. After that, we'll build a colony inside of it, and once we lose our interest in this maze, Rika Furude will disappear from this world. It looks like you still cling to this narrow world, Rika. Though I lost interest long ago. Which is why I'm truly glad you were born for me to talk to. So what are you doing? Are you collecting fragments of memory? There's only 5 or 6 of them right now. It must still be fun for you, though. There used to be more fragments long ago. But one by one, they disappeared into the darkness. Now, these are the only ones that remain clear. Oh, that's not how you're supposed to use it. See? Try and hold it up to the light. All of that is the life of Rika Furude, and its end. That one is... Oh, I remember that one. That's the world when Keiichi was cursed. Those fragments are like books to me, so I titled that one the Onikakushi chapter. Do you remember what happened in that one? Good. That makes things easier. In Onikakushi, Keiichi Maebara was consumed by the darkness. He couldn't accept the kind words his friends offered him, and eventually beat them to death, not knowing of their kindness. We were all killed after that anyway. That had nothing to do with his story, though. That fragment is the Watanagashi chapter. Shion Sonozaki was cursed in that one. She killed many people out of revenge for her boyfriend's disappearance, as he went missing in 1982. Rika worked so hard, but she was captured at the end and she was tortured to death. That's why she chose to commit suicide in the Meakashi chapter, because things were going to turn out the same way. Wait, oh yeah, she did stab herself, I remember. That fragment over there is called the Tatarigoroshi chapter. Satoko's uncle came back and locked her up inside her house. That was the worst world of all. There was nothing Rika was able to do in that world. Whenever Satoko's uncle comes back, Rika usually just gives up on that world. Fortunately, Satoko's uncle doesn't come back that frequently. That one is called the Sumihoroboshi chapter. Rika was there until just a moment ago. Rena Ryugu was possessed in that world. It was pretty exciting to see her take over the whole school. It surprised me to learn that Keiichi Maebara had a memory of the other worlds just like we do. It was pretty amazing, but then again, most of us have some kind of memory like that. We all have an imaginary world within us. Some idea of what would have happened if you did things differently. It's like the strange feeling you get when you do something for the first time, but it feels like you've done it before. Everyone has a memory of an imaginary world in their mind, but the memory is not always that clear. It's not surprising, really. You're special enough to be able to see those fragments of memory. It's probably very difficult for you to understand how special you really are. You were born into a world where it's a natural thing for you to see these fragments. I was originally born in the normal world. I didn't know until recently that I could collect these fragments of memory. You grabbed those fragments just because you could, but I didn't know how to do that for a long time. I'm sorry. I'm sure you're not interested in hearing my story. Huh? What's wrong? What are you curious about? Oh? You're curious as to why so many different incidents occur in the same world? It's very interesting, isn't it? Why do you think that's the case? Let's think about it together. Thinking is the first step towards playing a game. The main character among Rika's group of friends is Keiichi Maebara. In Onikakushi, he was possessed by suspicion and killed Rena Ryugu and Mion Sonozaki. If that was an inevitable event, he would be killing them in every world. In other words, what Keiichi Maebara did in Onikakushi was not inevitable. Indeed. The only thing that's inevitable is Keiichi Maebara's role. If Keiichi Maebara was someone with a naturally suspicious heart, he would take the same actions in every world. But that didn't happen. It's true that Keiichi Maebara is both passionate and easily convinced of anything, but it's rare for him to exhibit the kind of rage he displayed in Onikakushi. In other words, even though something might seem inevitable in one world, that may not be the case if you compare it to a different one. If something really is inevitable, it'll happen for sure in every life. That's what true inevitability is like. It's very important that you know that. When you compare the different worlds, what's common among all of them is the truth. Understand? Like I said, what seems inevitable in one life could just be a random event in another. The club activities that Mion Sonozaki suggests are a good example. If Mion Sonozaki had a strong inclination towards playing certain games, you would be playing them in every world. But in reality, you participate in different activities in most of them. That means the games they play in the club are randomly decided by Mion Sonozaki. We know that now because we've been through many different lives. Those who only live in one world can't see if the event in question is inevitable or random. Those who only live once can't predict what's going on in Mion Sonozaki's mind. But we can. Although the activities are random, Mion Sonozaki calls us together for the club meeting almost every day in every life. I can see that Mion Sonozaki holds a strong will towards having the club meeting. Mion Sonozaki always wants to play with the other club members, but she doesn't know what to play. See? We can read Mion Sonozaki's mind just by simply examining these fragments. With this alone, we can see part of who Mion Sonozaki really is. Let me talk a bit more about Keiichi Maebara. For those who only live once, the world of the Onikakushi chapter is nothing but a story where Keiichi suffered mysterious hallucinations and beat his friends to death. For them, there's nothing beyond that fact. We, however, can compare different fragments and find out something they could never see. As a result, we know that the murder of his friends was not inevitable. I told you that just earlier. In fact, while there are about 5 or 6 pieces in front of you, he only kills his friends in one of them. That means we can roughly conclude that the possibility Keiichi Maebara triggers the tragedy is less than 20% and is almost a fluke. This means that amongst the countless worlds, Keiichi Maebara causing the tragedy is an unimportant factor. Now, can you find the common thread to be drawn from here? My, you found it already?
No.
No wonder you were born in this world. You're quick to learn the knack for playing with building blocks. I didn't figure that out for a while. I was born in the normal world, so I could only see things from a single world's perspective. I was too obsessed with the fact that Keiichi Maebara caused the tragedy, so I had trouble finding it. Right, that's exactly right. You see it? The Onikakushi, Watanagashi, Meakashi, and Sumihoroboshi chapters all have something in common. People die? Someone in the group becomes violent because of dark and paranoid thoughts. In each world, either Keiichi Maebara, Shion Sonozaki, or Rena Ryugu become violent as their delusions grew stronger. But in Tatarigoroshi, I don't think that happened, did it? Because that was the chapter where Keiichi killed Satoko's uncle, but that wasn't because he had, like, dark thoughts. It was because Satoko was being abused, right? And I don't think Shion killed anyone in that chapter, and I don't think Rena did either. At least not that I recall. Keiichi Maebara, Shion Sonozaki, and Rena Ryugu are all my close friends, but they were all born and raised differently. The only common factor is that they all live in Hinamizawa. I just said it not too long ago, though. When we peer through these fragments of multiple worlds, the constant phenomena become our facts, and the chance phenomena hold little meaning. In other words, the unrelated individual culprits are not all that important. To go further, the violence of their crimes also bears no meaning. Keiichi Maebara beat his friends to death. Shion Sonozaki killed the central people of 3 families, and Rena Ryugu took over the school. They were all different. There's nothing in common there. In fact, the very, very important truth is that while the culprit and the crimes are decided at random, their process of growing paranoid until they resort to violence is always constant. Takano! The suspect changes every time, but the process does not. After comparing the different worlds, this is the truth I found. This is one truth that is common to all the worlds of Hinamizawa. The rule is that a random person becomes violent under the influence of paranoid thoughts. This is Rule X. Keiichi Maebara, Shion Sonozaki, and Rena-ryugu. Pieces with no particular connection have the potential to succumb to that rule with random probability. I don't know what the probability is that those pieces will be ensnared by that rule. Perhaps there's some rule to that too. Is it because these three are all close in age? Or is it because they all live in Hinamizawa? Well, does Shion live in Hinamizawa? Is Okinomiya Hinamizawa? Well, we're not detectives or police officers. This is not something that a small girl like us, Rika Furude, can easily figure out. At least we now know that there's a mysterious rule in the world of Hinamizawa. People who only live in one world have no way of knowing that. I'm proud of myself for figuring that out. I guess for you it's not particularly surprising, though. Huh? What did you say? That's right. If something is common among all worlds, that means it's fated to happen. Some events quickly come to mind, don't they? Right. Jiro Tomitake and Mio Takano are always killed in those worlds. On top of that, they're murdered in exactly the same way in every world. In other words, unlike our previous rule with its variability, their murders are thoroughly planned out by someone with a strong will. So that doesn't fit with the mysterious, vague Rule X that leads a random individual to violence. After all, they're always murdered regardless of who falls to Rule X. Therefore, there's another rule to these worlds. A rule that says Jiro Tomitake and Mio Takano will get killed on the night of Watanagashi. Let's call it Rule Y. Don't you see how funny this is? Jiro Tomitake and Mio Takano are killed in every world, right? Every time, the character who gets cursed always thinks that their deaths have something to do with the danger that's awaiting them. The fact that someone turns violent, Rule X, and Jiro Tomitake and Mio Takano's deaths, Rule Y, are supposed to be two independent rules, but they all tend to link them together. Of course, one could say that's how they become ensnared in the spell of paranoia leading them to violence to begin with. But do you think, in their paranoia, that they notice someone is trying to lead them to link those rules together? Yes. Whoever the piece leading them is, they are the ones making this stage called Hinamizawa very complicated. You should have noticed at least two suspicious people. Oishi and Takano! It's gotta be! Do you know who I'm talking about? That's right. I'm referring to Kurado Oishi and Mio Takano. When you compare our previous fragments, the role of the piece known as Kurado Oishi becomes clear. He's a detective who's retiring this year, and he's in a hurry to solve the mystery of the series of deaths in Hinamizawa. After he retires, he'll have to move away from the village. That's why he's desperate to solve this case before he has to leave Hinamizawa. Why is he so obsessed with the serial murders in Hinamizawa? That's right. It's because of the first murder involving the manager of the construction site. The victim was Oishi's close friend. You'll see that if you look at the Himatsubushi chapter. Oishi was there when the dam conflict was at its peak. He saw how the Sonozaki family took control of the Onigafuchi Guardians, and he believed that the Sonozaki family was pulling the strings behind the whole incident. That's why he always suspected that the Sonozaki family was behind the series of mysterious deaths, regardless of the evidence or lack thereof. His personal biased belief, combined with his credibility as a police detective, affected the pitiable victims of the persecution complexes in each world. As a result, the pitiful victims of Rule X come to accept the Sonozaki family as the identity of the unknown force their paranoia seeks. Shion Sonozaki's case was the most conspicuous one in that matter. So yes, if this piece, Oishi, didn't intervene, then perhaps the victims of Rule X wouldn't have resorted to such violence. So the role his piece plays is to indirectly cause the tragedy. That is so tragic, that he wants to stop it, but he's the one causing it. I don't know who named him this, but Oyashiro-sama's servant is the perfect nickname for Oishi. The other suspicious person is Mio Takano. One would assume the only role of her piece is to amuse herself with research into Onigafuchi's dreadful history, and to take pleasure in scaring others with those tales. However, just like WEEEH, she also gives them the idea that the Sonozaki family is behind all the mysterious incidents that happen in the village. She interfered the most with Ryugu. For Mio Takano, Ryugu was the perfect prey, grasping at straws to try and identify the force she suspected. Ironically, however, Mio Takano always ends up getting killed at the end. If she had survived and seen Rena take over the school, she would have laughed long and loud. Now, have you realized that these two pieces and the roles they fulfill have their own rule too? They talk about the Sonozaki family, and the listeners always believe them. This is Rule Z, and what a humorous rule it is. You should already have an answer to this mystery in the fragments on your hand. The fact is that the Sonozaki family always acts as if they're responsible, no matter if they are or not. They always pretend to be the villains in order to make sure that people continue to fear them. As a result, the villagers have believed that the Sonozaki family has been pulling the strings ever since the dam conflict ended. Kuraudo WEEEH and Mio Takano were simply fooled by that rule. Actually, the whole village is fooled by it. Still, the more I think about it, the stranger the series of mysterious deaths in Hinamizawa seems to me. Do you know why? Nearly all of the fragments of memories we have here are from 1983. So I have no idea about the incidents from 1980 to 82. But it's likely that interpreting these murders as serial is simply a result of falling victim to Rule Z, believing that the Sonozaki family is pulling the strings behind everything. In short, they may be trying to conflate those multiple crimes, which each happen for different reasons, into one big case. Well, I have no way of discerning the truth from the fragments here. Still, perhaps something lies in one of them. Each case was supposed to have been solved individually, after all. We don't know if that theory is sound or irrational, but it might surprisingly be an element we can't ignore. That reminds me, Shion said something intriguing in the Meakashi chapter. The curse system she came up with. Do you remember that? Her theory was that the villagers believe that they're allowed to kill an enemy of the village on the night of Watanagashi, in the name of Oyashiro-sama's curse. And that this foundation of murder is allowed on that night alone is the true identity of the curse. Since most of the fragments here are from 1983, there's nothing to back the validity of Shion's theory, but there are still interesting things about it. In other words, her theory is that the suspect is not the one who's committing the crime. It's the environment that's causing the murder. People in a single world tend to analyze a criminal's life to determine the process that led them to crime, but her idea is different. The real crime is committed not by the criminals, but by the environment. In other words, it may only be happenstance that Robber A committed the crime, and the environment of poverty may have created Robber B instead, or perhaps even Robber C. A may not even be a criminal in another world. Therefore, the real criminal is not A, but the environment that creates A, B, or C. And well, while people in a single world may be able to reach such an idea, the widespread desire to place blame commonly causes A to be lynched by society, while the environment that gave rise to A goes ignored. Did I confuse you? I'm sorry. Perhaps that example was actually harder to understand for you. It's easy for me to see it like that because I'm from the normal world. Let me make it simple for you. The culprit behind the tragedy in many worlds isn't individuals like Keiichi Maebara or Shion Sonozaki, but the environment. So Rule X is the true culprit at fault. You're earning good marks if you can grasp that, even if we don't know the identity of Rule X. And if you can grasp the three rules governing this stage called Hinamizawa, Rules X, Y, and Z, then you're earning very good marks. So long as you understand those rules, then even if this is your first experience world, you should easily find the truth without distraction. See? Isn't it fun? Merely 3 simple rules are interacting on this stage, creating a kaleidoscope of different worlds. This is probably a very unusual case. In other locations, you shouldn't be able to see such extreme variation even after looping through several worlds. It keeps me entertained just staying here and watching those worlds revolve. Anyway, there's one more fact we can understand from these fragments of worlds. This is the biggest problem we Rika Furudes are facing. The fact that Rika Furude always dies each time. It's as if June 1983 is a dead end for her. Worse, there's no randomness to it. It's guaranteed to happen. In other words, it's the same pattern as the deaths of Jiro Tomitake and Mio Takano. But isn't it a little different though? Because she dies on different days. Or at least, I think she does. It's following the exact same rule, Rule Y. Tomitake Jiro and Takano Mio are always murdered on the night of Watanagashi. Furude Rika's date of death is not always the same, but she's always dead by the middle of June. Jiro Tomitake and Mio Takano are probably attacked on their way home, so that's why it always happens on the same night. But for Rika Furude, it's different. She takes different actions in every world, and her lifestyle is very unpredictable. For that reason, the day of her death is not always the same. However, she always dies in June, because a similar powerful conviction vows to kill her too. So can we assume that the same Rule Y killing them is also the rule behind her death? Is the same person killing all 3 of them? I don't know if it's the same person, but it's highly likely the same rule is at work. Is it the same person? Or the same organization? Is it the same views? The same goals? Rika's most important goal is to escape her deadly fate. But it doesn't mean that she just wants to leave the village and survive. She wants to live happily in the village. All of her friends must also be happy too. Then Rika's happy future. Oh, that's Rika's happy future. The ideal future she hopes for. It's tragic that we can't realize such a simple desire no matter how many times we repeat this. Though it's a tragedy we're only able to perceive because we're beings capable of comparing the fragments from different worlds. By the way, I have some interesting information. While Rika is almost always killed by Rule Y, have you noticed that she's killed by Rule X in some worlds? Right. It happened in the Watanagashi and the Meakashi chapters. Rika Furude committed suicide, but you could say she was more or less killed by Rule X via Shion Sonozaki in those worlds. In other words, this is a blunder for Rule Y. Rule Y is trying to kill Rika with a strong desire to achieve some aim. But she was killed before that, as a result of the unrelated Rule X. That might have caused them to show some disturbance. If Rule Y's objective is simply to bury Rika, then that's not a problem. But if they have some objective beyond that, then that might show up as some other phenomenon. Perhaps the Watanagashi and Meakashi chapters have something in common. Something that doesn't happen in the other worlds. Unfortunately, we're Rika Furude, so we don't know what happens after Rika is dead. Or, by any chance, do you know what happened? Since I'm Rika Furude, I only know of events during Rika's life. You, on the other hand, are a special existence who was born in a superior world. Is there anything that didn't happen in the Watanagashi and Meakashi chapters? That happened in all the other worlds after Rika's death? I don't remember. Watanagashi was a long time ago. If you know anything, then that must be another truth behind Rule Y. The memories I have here are all mainly about the chaos brought about by Rika's friends, that is, Rule X. But its foundation, Rule Z, and the obvious hostility common among all worlds, Rule Y, are what I believe to be the true rules governing this stage. If so, then Rika's path is a thorny one. She needs to fight Rule Y in order to survive. Unless she defeats it, she has no future past June 1983. And to win her own happiness, she must also beat Rule X to win her friend's safety. So long as that's undefeated, one of Rika's precious friends may be led to tragedy. If that happens, then even should Rika survive, she wouldn't live the happy future she hopes for. She also may have to defeat Rule Z, just as Sonozaki Shion faced it in Meakashi. So long as Rule Z remains, then even if she escapes 1983, it's possible another tragedy may lie waiting in 1984. It's extremely likely that Rule Z is the breeding ground for Rule X. Hinamizawa's fundamental belief that the Sonozaki family is behind everything, and the custom that anything can be misconstrued as the curse, may indirectly be the root of all evil here. People are not surprised to see somebody die on the night of Watanagashi. That type of thinking is keeping the curse alive in Hinamizawa, where it causes even more tragedy. It's Rule Z reinforcing itself. Rules X, Y, and Z. There are 3 rules that hunt Rika down in the eternal June of 1983. They're all tough obstacles. We didn't even figure out these 3 common rules until recently. Were you aware of them? If you were, I'll give you straight A's. I've tried so hard in the past to break these rules, but I was never successful. However, a miracle happened in the Sumihoroboshi chapter. Keiichi Maebara was able to recognize a small fragment from another world by chance, and he beat Rule X. In the end, Rika was still killed that night by Rule Y though. But still, one rule was defeated. That was a huge leap forward. Rika knew there were 3 common rules among the worlds, but she could never break any of them. Eventually, she gave up and lost interest in the worlds. That's how I was born. However, she's different now. She learned something valuable from Keiichi Maebara, that the rules can be broken with a strong enough will to fight. If she can break all 3 rules, Rika Furude will be freed from her eternal prison. She doesn't have much time left, though. Rika's traveled through many worlds. Her physical lifespan is not a problem, but her mental lifespan is getting shorter. Mentally, she's extremely old, and her soul is starting to turn into something different. In the end, she'll probably lose the ability to experience singular worlds. She's already showing those signs, and eventually her memories from the parallel worlds will mix together, ultimately causing her derangement and the loss of Rika Furude's soul. Then, she will disappear. That means that you and I are going to be left in this dark world. The fragments of our memories will gradually disappear, and we'll be left alone in the eternal darkness. Eventually, we will die. Rika Furude is aware of that. She knows that her mental lifespan is getting shorter and shorter. Hanyuu is also losing her powers. Who's Hanyuu? She can't rewind through years of time like she used to. Her power has decreased so much that she can barely rewind 1 month of time. Actually, she can only rewind a few weeks. In the next world, she should only have about 2 weeks of time. Rika Furude is going to try and break all 3 rules in just those 2 weeks. Oh? I wanted to know what's outside the well, so I tried to claw my way up from there. I wanted to know what's outside the well, so I continued to climb even when I fell and injured myself. I finally realized the higher I climb, the more pain I feel when I fall. When my curiosity toward the world and my physical pain became equal, I finally They took it away too quickly! I couldn't finish it! Chapter 7, Minagoroshi. What is that? What is that? Was that an eye? I feel like there was a silhouette of a person in there. I felt no gravity in the darkness, and lost all my senses as a result. I banged my head on the floor with a dull thud. Seeing stars behind my eyelids, I curled into a ball while holding my head in pain. Are you okay? Did you get hurt?
Rika,
Please say something. Oh, this is Rika. I had no idea why I was in this situation, but as soon as I heard their voices from the top of the cliff, I realized that I must have fallen. Ah, I remember. I was playing behind the shrine with the rest of the club members. I got too excited and started doing something very dangerous, and then the tree branch broke. That's how I fell off the cliff. My body started to ache all over. I remembered how I fell, but I still felt strange for some reason. I couldn't remember what I was doing. No, it was more that I couldn't remember who Rika Furude was before I fell off the cliff. Hello, hello. I heard Hanyuu's panicked voice. Huh? Oh my gosh, wait, she's so cute! I looked behind me and saw Hanyuu standing there with a scared look on her face. You? Ouch. What just happened? You were playing with everyone and fell off the cliff. Are you okay? I don't care about that, Hanyuu. What day is it today? What year and what month is it? I always ask this question first when something like this happens. She finally realized that I was asking the same old question. It's June of 1983. The Watanagashi festival is next week, so... Oh dear. I only have that much time left? This is the best we can do, Hanyuu muttered regretfully. It was the middle of June 1983. If this really was the best she could do, I had no choice. I couldn't complain. I gradually started to remember more things. If this is June of 1983, I see. I was killed again. After Rana surrendered to the police, all of the classmates were given checkups at the clinic. I didn't get hurt, so I was sent back home after they determined that I had no injuries. My memory started getting vague from that point on. A common characteristic of my violent deaths. When my life is taken away violently, the memory before death becomes vague with static. It's like a violently ripped roll of toilet paper. That example should make it easy to understand, even if it's uncouth. That's why I have no clear memory of what happened and how I died that night. I only have vague memories. I think someone covered my mouth with a handkerchief or something, and I passed out. That's about the only thing that I remember, and only vaguely. I'm not even sure if it really happened. The only thing I know for sure is that I was attacked on my way home, or possibly after I got there, and that I was murdered suddenly. I don't know who killed me or how I was killed. I'm glad that I at least don't remember the horrific ending to my life every time it happens. Because of my experiences, I think I now understand why ghosts wander around the world, not knowing that they died so suddenly. If it's a death from a long-lasting illness, people tend to remember that they were sick. They could kind of assume that they died after being sick for a long time. But when your memory is violently disrupted like mine, it can get quite confusing. When I first experienced this, I wasn't sure if I was dreaming or not. I even thought I hit my head hard and lost my memory. I needed to organize things before I get too confused. My name is Rika Furude. People look at me in a special way, but that's not a big deal for me. All I want is a happy life where I can play around with my best friends. I can't remember how long I've been living just for the sake of obtaining that simple happiness. Oh my gosh, Hanyuu's little! The panicked girl here is named Hanyuu. I'm the only one who can see her. Perhaps she only exists inside of my head. At any rate, Hanyuu's invisible and can generally only interact with me. It'll be a long story if I try to explain Hanyuu's existence, so I won't be doing that right now. Besides, I don't even know how I should talk about her. She's been there since I was born, and her existence is a natural thing for me. I saw everyone running up the gravel road towards me. My important and lovable best friends. The group's active, boisterous, and we get serious about doing stupid things. I'm never bored when I'm around them, and I love them very much.
Rika-chan, are you okay? Did you sprain your ankle?
Where did you get hurt? Let this old man have a look at it.
Meep. Thank you so much. I just got a bump on my head.
I think all I got was a bump at least. My injury wasn't as serious as everyone thought.
When you hit your head, you still need to be cautious, even if you're fine for the moment.
That's true. You should get the coach to check you out just in case.
That's a good idea. Do you want me to go and get it?
Yeah. We'll go ask somebody to use a phone and call him here.
You don't need to do that. I'm totally fine. Bah.
Absolutely not, Rika.
You must be cautious.
Satoko warned me with a stern voice. It really wasn't a big deal, but I decided to nod since Satoko was trying to be generous. She wasn't trying to boss me around or anything. She was only saying that because of how much she cares. I've seen it before in the many different lives that I've been through. I have no doubt that she's really concerned about me. It's not just Satoko. Mion, Rena, and Keiichi are all the same. They're so nice to me, and they truly do care. Mion left to look for a phone. Rena also left with a towel, looking for the water tap. Satoko remained nearby, taking care of me with a worried face. And Hanyuu was just standing there, still wearing a panicked look. Keiichi seemed to be panicked too, but he was trying not to show it. He was standing by me, wearing a calm expression. Are you all right?
I'm fine. It doesn't hurt anywhere.
I'm glad you're not seriously injured. I was super worried.
I wouldn't feel anything special about his words if this was a while ago. But the moment when Rena took over the classroom, when she hurt Mion, Keiichi tried his best to save Rena, even so. He was more reliable than I ever imagined from his normal behavior. He's usually an insensitive guy who hurts other people's feelings without noticing, but that's not his true self. He has a secret side. He's willing to sacrifice himself for other people. I was just observing that not too long ago. That's why I can honestly feel his generosity now. Now that I think about it, Keiichi regained a memory from another world the previous time around. Is it possible that he carries that memory in this world too? If that's the case, I have some hope. Hanyuu and I are totally powerless. Hanyuu is only like heir to everyone but me, and I'm just a little girl. There's only so much that we could do ourselves. But Keiichi's different. He changed the fate that I had once resigned myself to. He's somebody who may have the power to take me to my unseen future. If I could get Keiichi to understand me, he could be my hero. Perhaps I'm actually not expecting that much out of him. I just want someone to understand my struggle of being stuck in this maze. Keiichi? I spoke to him slowly. It had been a while since I felt so nervous. I hadn't felt this way since I started my endless life in 1983. As a witch, I normally would know what his response would be before even talking to him. A witch? I often remain silent because I already know how pitiful the reply would be. But in that case, why was I so nervous now?
Huh? Did you call me Rika-chan?
Hanyuu gave me a disappointed look before I responded to Keiichi.
Rika,
I could tell what Hanyuu was thinking too. The miracle wasn't going to happen. If miracles do happen, one could have happened many times in my other lives. But I've only seen one miracle before. The miracle that Keiichi gave me was a once-in-a-lifetime kind of miracle. If only it happened again, would it be a true miracle?
or only if it happened again would it be a true miracle.
I won't get out of this world just because I rolled 6 on the die once. I can't get out unless I get a miracle that's equivalent to getting 6 on the die 10 times in a row. So, I rolled 10 dice wishing that they'd all turn out to be 6. Keiichi,
What is it? Are you hurt anywhere?
he looked at me worriedly after I called his name twice. Keiichi, do you remember? I knew how sudden my question was. As I thought he would, he looked at me with a confused face.
Huh? What are you talking about?
I looked inside his eyes to see his true feelings. He should remember. He should know. Even though he doesn't have the memory, Keiichi experienced it. What is she referring to, Keiichi-san? Did you do something bad to her? You had better speak up. Keiichi, do you remember climbing up on the school roof? The school roof? Keiichi-san, you climbed up there? I'm not asking you, Satoko. Do you remember, Keiichi?
I did? I climbed the roof? When? You must be mistaken somehow, Rika-chan. I never climbed on the roof, and I don't even know how to get up there.
Of course you haven't experienced it in this world yet. But please tell me that you remember. I know you've never been up on the roof, but you should still remember doing it. You shouldn't be able to remember it, true, but you actually did once. You should be able to remember it once again. Perhaps you went up there to get a ball or something?
Never. Have you been up there, Satoko?
Unthinkable. I would get in such terrible trouble if I did something like that.
I bet it'd feel really good to take a nap up there. There's no way you would remember. If miracles could happen that easily, neither of us would be suffering like this.
Shut up. I knew that. I knew that he wouldn't remember.
Our fate is already set in stone. We're like a pitiful cicada that dies after the summer festival.
Shut up.
Oh.
As I stared at her fiercely, Hanyuu realized that she'd crossed a line. This might be a waste of time. The maze we're in might not have an exit. It might be an endless loop without a goal in place. We're trapped in this fate. I thought that Keiichi might be able to get me out of here. But that Keiichi I saw was truly a miracle, a momentary glimmer. Keiichi of this world doesn't bear that same miracle. All the same, I'm not going to give up. Last time too, I gave up on fighting destiny. I realized Rana was beyond salvation, so I bid her farewell and forsook that world. But Keiichi fought and broke the cycle of fate. I should have worked harder with that Keiichi in that world. I could have broken this endless cycle together with him. Am I going to repeat this life, waiting for that miracle to happen again? I can't do that. I don't want to repeat the same life anymore. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of this world, my fate, and everything. I'm tired of getting murdered by destiny. Keiichi showed me a miracle. I should be able to do the same too. I must fight. I must fight with all my remaining power. I was always fighting. I was fighting when I had more power. But I never made it. How can I expect to win this time? Still, I must fight. Keiichi taught me that fate can be shattered. I'm going to fight one more time.
To my granddaughter. I'm sorry for leaving you like this. I just need you to understand I'd rather take my own life than be fearful of how many days I have left to live. That's why I'm writing this letter to you. I can't stand the fear of being unable to leave behind a will while my life is prolonged, even as I lose my consciousness. In the end, there's nothing I can leave behind for you. I was unable to leave any of my achievements to this world. I was forgotten before I was dead. I leave this world a humiliated man, knowing that I had no appreciation from anyone. You must do better than me. You must achieve something that your grandfather was never able to achieve. I don't mind what field you choose. You must leave your mark on this world. You must leave behind your achievements. You will eventually die someday. You will eventually turn to ashes. As a human being, that is your inevitable fate. But if you achieve a great success, you will live forever, even after you depart. Those who live beyond their deaths are called gods. I wished to become one, but I was unable to do so. So in my place, you must become a god someday.
Huh?
To my granddaughter. Rika's grandpa? But, like, I don't think so. Very interesting. Now, we have some time. I'm gonna see if the Wi-Fi will tolerate me playing Wuthering Waves. And if it doesn't, then we will draw. And it'll be fine. But I want to see if it will work. So, I'm gonna boot it up, and we're gonna see.